Hi, I'm Daniel and this is Ashville. Today we're offloading a train with 1,400 tons of Type 1 in under 3 hours before we get a 20 grand fine. This video is sponsored by Insta 360. Now the train is arriving at 6:30 a.m. This is a 60-ton machine. Here's the techers with the Wagon offloading. Here we go. There was nothing anyone could do about it. This locomotive has 3,300 brake horsepower. Since so many of you love the train offloading, we're doing a whole video breaking down the stages. But to give you the full experience, we're using this Insta 360 1x2 to give you some incredible shots. Here's some of the features. You have this invisible selfie stick that makes it look like the camera is hovering. We have some next level stabilization with horizon leveling. That means we have to never straighten shots in the edit. 360 reframing. So you can shoot now and ask questions later. You have the ability to reframe shots in the app. So that's when the 1x2's advanced algorithm deep track can track humans, animals, and moving objects. They even have the ShotLab mobile app with loads of templates. You know how I always say I wish there was more of me? Well, with Clone Trail, you could do this at the touch of a button. One, two, three, 4, 5 Daniels. Now the train is arriving at 6:30 a.m. We have 3 hours to offload it, but that's not the total time. The time to offload the train is actually given as 5 hours, but the clock starts ticking when the train goes past this area. It goes down, it turns around, it comes back up here, and then it backs into the yard. This train is gonna have 19 wagons. Each of these wagons has 75 tons in it. So if we work our way through the train and we spend about 12 minutes on each wagon, that should be more than enough time to get it done. Now here's the capabilities of this yard. So we have a main line and we have a secondary line. On the main line, we can fit 18 wagons, and on the secondary line, we can fit 6 wagons. So there's 24 wagons in total, but it's very rare that we ever get a train that large. There are limitations on the amount of wagons which can be loaded, and also if trains are coming from the Cornwall area, there are very high hills and the locomotives aren't powerful enough to pull trains bigger than 19 wagons over those hills. Throughout the day, this gate is closed. Only when the train's coming in, the shunter has a special key, he unlocks the padlock, and this is open, and that's when we can accept trains. This is how we offload the train. This is our L860 material handler. This is a 60-ton machine with a clamshell bucket on it. It is a 60-ton machine, but by the time we fill it with fuel and we take into account the weight of this bucket and a few other bits on it, it's really around the 70-ton mark. This machine has an elevated cab and has been specifically designed for this application. Today, the operator offloading this train, his name is Flo. Now, Flo should get it done in about 3 hours or just over. Unfortunately for Flo, he won't take any breaks while the train is being offloaded. He'll take a break just before, and then as soon as the train backs in, then Flo will be in this machine getting the train offloaded, and then he could take a break afterwards. 3 hours isn't too bad, but of course, if Flo needs the toilet, he can stop at any point. He just has to lower the cab down if it's raised, park the machine up, use the wonderful facilities we have here, and then he can come back afterwards and carry on. But what he'll tend to do is not take a break until he's completely offloaded a wagon. So you're not going to take a break halfway through a wagon being done. You'll finish that wagon, and while the train is being shunted backwards and forwards, that is the time when you're going to go and take a quick break and then come back. For the first shot of the day, I'm going to put the Insta 360 1x2 on the rail line right here on a sleeper so we can see the train coming in, backing over it. Now luckily I don't have to use a suction pad for this. It should just stand up by itself. Right, I'm going to put that right here. Daniel Spielberg in full effect. I'm doing this now because the train isn't here yet and it hasn't crossed over into the boundary of our yard. Had the train been here, I obviously can't do this because it's a health and safety hazard, but everything else is covered. Full high vis, full orange, boots, hard hat, ready to go. The shunter is very responsible. He was about to move our Insta 360 camera. Thankfully I was here. 3, 2, 1. haven't backed the train all the way in. What we're doing is we're starting to offload the wagons at the back. So if we can get those offloaded ASAP. So the cab has gone up on the L860, and at the moment we're offloading directly into the bay. Now the shovel is also on standby, but at the moment we won't be needing the shovel. So here's the techers with the wagon offloading. You grab, 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 then you go back, grab, 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 grab. Once you get towards the bottom of the wagon, you begin to drop the bucket in and you slide it across. So you take up all the bits you can and try and push the material to the corner, and then you grab it and drop it there. Now we have to unload the majority of the wagon. It's not easy, but we do tend to get it right because this train is going somewhere else afterwards, and we can't have contamination in the wagons. Contamination is basically any other material being in this wagon and mixing with the type 1 that we had in there from this delivery. Flo has already done one wagon and he done it in 10 minutes, so we have plenty of time to go. We're not up against the clock just yet, but we need to keep up a consistency. Yes, consistency is key. Right, so we can see it's gonna back in now. If you look at the wagons here and we go from here all the way to down there, you'll see right at the bottom, we have a wagon that's a slightly different color. That's our training wagon. That's what we use to train the drivers here, and that is how Flo learned. Right, so we have put a gap in the train. The reason we put this gap in the train, so people can still come in and get loaded, because no matter what, even if the train's here, even if we're offloading, we still need the material to get on the lorries and get over to the job. So let's have a look. Here we go. If you have a look here, Liviu's on the shovel, and as the material is going into the bay, Liviu is pulling the material out so he can load the lorry, which is over here. So here we go, dropping the material into the bay. We always want to be as efficient as we possibly can. So as the material hits the deck, we want it onto lorries. The shovel, while it's pushing up the material, it's loading lorries as well. When that shovel bucket is in the air, it's actually taking a weight because there are weighing scales in the shovel. The lorries come in and they go onto the weighbridge. When they go onto the weighbridge, we have their empty weight. They come over here and the shovel loads them. Lorry goes back onto the weighbridge, get your ticket, off the weighbridge, over the wheel wash and out the gate to do deliveries. We try to do that as much as we can so we can be efficient and we don't stop any of the collections, which would stop the deliveries. And we continue. Let's go, Flo. What I love about this camera is its ability to make changes in post. Let me explain. As it's a 360 camera, if you think you missed something behind you, no problem. You can just pan 180 and include that shot. Shoot first, point later. It's like having two cameramen. We're putting our 360 on here. And don't worry, we don't expect Flo to not be rough with it, even though Flo is very gentle. We're gonna leave this on here and see what great shots we can get and see if we can really see the inside of the wagon.
Yep.
We're recording, let's go. Back together and we're going to start shunting in a second. Flo is on wagon number 3 and we are making good time. I cannot stop Flo mid-flow to change the camera, but we will change it in a second. All right. Yeah?
Nice.
Is it recording, yeah?
Yeah, recording.
So we're right in the mix underneath the L860. I think we're going to take that off and then we're going to try and put it on the back of the 60. It's got a very wide rear end. The extended selfie stick can elevate up to 3 meters. That's serious.
Next, we're mounting the Insta 360 to the top of the loading shovel. Having a look at it, the LH60 and the shovel work perfectly together. They kind of have to work like synchronized swimmers. In an ideal world, you want the LH60 to take a bucket, slew round, drop the bucket, and continue to slew round and go into the wagon. While the LH60 goes back into the wagon, you want the loading shovel to push the material up and then get out the way just in time for the LH60 to spin around again. Luckily, the LH60 and the loading shovel have 360 cameras all the way around, and the people here are used to working with each other, and safety comes first. So they always look. They don't just rely on the cameras, they actually look to make sure the path is clear. In some instances, we can actually set a limiter on the LH60 so we can stop it from slewing round all the way. So we could make it so the LH60 could just slew from here and slew back round to here. But for our application, because we run a tight ship, it's working very well. Now, we're gonna try and attach the 360 onto the train here so we can get some close-ups and we can see if we can get any cool angles. And then I'm pretty much gonna leave the guys to it and see if Will and Dan can come up with some creative ideas of their own. Once you've mounted the camera, you can monitor the shot in the app and pan around to get a feel of how it'll look in the final edit. So hopefully by us mounting the 360 on the wagon here, you were able to get a good idea of how much of the wheel is actually on the track and how easy it would be to derail. But fortunately, we've never derailed, so it's more important to be safe than it is to offload the train. Using a 2-arm swivel clamp, Wilson attaches the Insta 360 to the protection plate on the bottom of the ram and checks the shot on the mobile app. Offloading in this area at the moment straight into the bay, but at some point the LH60 is going to have to move up to the top here to offload the wagons closest to the locomotive, because no matter what we do, no matter what configuration, no matter how many wagons are on a secondary line, you cannot get the wagons which are closer to the locomotive into this area. So the LH60 will have to move and offload there. We've had an idea, a great idea. Can't explain it to you, I have to show it to you. We have attached our Insta 360 1x2 to a drone. We used a 3M adhesive pad to attach the Insta 360 to the bottom of our drone, gave it a test to make sure it wouldn't fall off, and now we're gonna put this up and see what cool shots we can get. I'm gonna go as far as to say these are probably gonna be the coolest shots that we've ever gotten in the yard of the train being offloaded. Now, the way we offload the train here is based on the circumstances we have. So we've gone for a tracked machine and we have these box wagons. However, there are different forms of wagons and different machines. Now, we've seen people in other yards which actually have an LH120, yes, double the size of our one, and it straddles the train and from above the bucket cleans out the wagons. We've seen other people that have LH40s and LH60s, but they have wheels on them so they can run up and down at the side of the train. Regarding these wagons, you can have ones which are a bottom discharge, which means there's an area where all the material comes out at a central point, it goes to a hole in the track, and then a conveyor belt takes it to the material pile. But that wouldn't work for us here because the train has to back in and leave the same way which it came, like Mad Max Thunderdome. There's one way in, one way out. If the train could pass through the yard and each wagon could go over that point, we would probably use bottom discharge in this yard. We've also seen, or you may have seen online, there are these wagons which actually tilt and they drop the material onto the ground. Now, those would be my favorite, but it's not something which GB Rail Freight have ever offered us or I've even seen in this country. So the offload's going well. We have left this shot till last. We're using a swivel clamp and we're connecting to the guard plate on the bucket. Now, the reason we left this till last is because the 360 is in the most danger. The amount of force that's going through the bucket and all the vibration could make it come off at any time. The trouble is, if it does, we cannot stop the train offload under any circumstances. So the 360 will get stuck in the material and it be offloaded as aggregate. And then we'll be giving people Insta 360 aggregate. As I said, we don't want any contamination, so we have to clean everything out the wagons. But fortunately, there is a small amount of tolerance. Now, we are always within that tolerance. There's just little specks of the material left in the wagon. These wagons are now going to load type 1 again, but if it was going to load sand or ballast, we are definitely within the tolerance and there would be no contamination. Brake test. So they're powering it up, getting all the air in, and you need to test the brakes before you leave, and this will be ready to leave in a few minutes. Brake test complete, and this train is about to leave. People ask why we could get a 20 grand fine if the train wasn't offloaded in time. The freight operators, they manage their locomotives and wagons the same way that we do with our lorries. We don't like empty journeys and we like to put the asset to use as much as possible. So this train is booked to go somewhere else now and get loaded. If it missed this loading slot there, this train could be stuck in this yard for 2 to 3 days. See, Network Rail look at the entire rail system and everything is completely managed. So every single route is fitted in with all the other trains in the entire country. If you miss your slot for a train to leave, you could be stuck somewhere for a few days, and therefore everybody else who's waiting for material and all the plans for this train, they would go completely out of the window. That is why we have fines, and that is why it's so important to get the train offloaded as quickly as possible. Just to be clear, those fines only work one way. So we can't turn around and fine anyone, especially not when it's Network Rail. For instance, one Saturday, a train came in here in the morning. Now, it was offloaded and it was ready to go because it had to go and load somewhere so it could go and deliver material Monday morning. Network Rail took possession of the track up the front, which meant the train couldn't leave, and the train didn't then leave here till Tuesday. And as it's Network Rail, there was nothing anyone could do about it. Hey! So that's it. The train is now leaving the yard. We successfully offloaded. You can hear the power coming out of this locomotive. Now, this locomotive has 3,300 brake horsepower and 8,000 Newton meters of torque. A job well done. What you just saw there was the final roll-by test. So Malcolm watched all of the wheels as they rolled to make sure there was no damage and everything was still on the tracks. Now we're ready for the train to finally leave the yard and go back to the quarry and get reloaded.
So that's it. We've successfully offloaded 1,400 ton of Type 1 in 3 hours and 11 minutes. Guys, let us know what you think of the video and let us know any other videos you'd like us to make using this Insta360 1X2. Insta360 have a special deal for Ashville viewers where you can get 10% off the 1X2. Check the link in the description, but hurry, because the offer ends on the 21st of April. Click here for the Ashville website. Click here to subscribe to our channel. Click here to see a video on us reviewing our twin loading shovels, and click here to see a video on how we transported the LH60 to this yard.